So 3 concepts I'm going to get across in this presentation. One is the concept around social learning as a standalone concept. So how does that work independently of the other learning we've always thought about? Second is how we integrate the concept of social informing learning into rethinking our designs of learning from the ground up. And then thirdly, around increasing performance by integrating observational software into the same part. So just to give a quick starter for 10. Actually, I haven't checked the sound here. I hope it's all going to work. What I want to introduce to is a quick montage of a couple of different user-generated content created by one of our clients, Phones for You, that's been using Fuse for the last 9 months as a pure social learning tool where peer-to-peer people are teaching each other. So up till recently, the pure use of our technology is for the crowd to teach the crowd. This is just a couple of excerpts of different videos from different people creating some stuff.
Hello, my name's Joe from Phones for You in Newbury, 192, Region 12. I'd like to go through some cool features on the Samsung Galaxy Note 3 and the Gear. Oh, where is my phone? Well, if you do lose your phone, what you can do as well is just slide your finger down and go into Apps and find my device. You can actually press Start and it will actually find the phone itself. This is Note 3 Gear. Yeah, 007 calling James Bond.
I'm Tony Navai-Bryan, Head of Security Investigations for Phones for You, and I'm here live at Portland, Jamaica with my good friend here, Gary Strickland Smith.
It's this over here. If you can focus the camera down here. Now what we've got,
What he was saying, if you could hear him, was he's saying there's 3 things: the target, desire, and opportunity.
Yeah.
Oh, you just stay here.
You're right.
I've tried to have a look, but
Okay.
there seems to be
Maybe
nothing
stay
you
here.
can do. Is there anything you can think of?
Yeah, we can web match it.
Web match it.
Web match it.
What's that?
I'll show you.
Web match, baby. Web match, baby. Last week, a girl walked through the store, really upset about iPhone 4. She told me how she dropped it on the floor and since that day ain't working no more.
Okay, so there's a quick few examples. So Phones for You uses every single day on a day-to-day basis. Predominantly, they're started by purely in a peer-to-peer environment, allowing each individual. And what they did was a radical concept across many corporations. What they did was they trusted their employees. And there's a radical concept, and in terms of command and control architecture, I know we all talk about the concept of it, but actually Phones for You went for it. And to be fair, I think what they've had is a phenomenal approach to what goes on a daily basis. So, I mean, from the idea, so the idea here is via the mobile phones or a browser, they can literally just press a record button, or via any of the apps, they can press a record button, and wherever they are, they have to be on holiday in Jamaica and had a great idea, they can capture that, share that, distribute that, comment it, have conversations around it, and engage an employee workforce around that, which is all tracked and measured and analyzed and dissected to get meaning from it. Some of the regions, like Region 11, as a particular example, actually stopped using web conferences completely and only does all of its updates to its staff via the platform. So what they realize is it's much more human when actually you can see and talk to humans. So every couple of days, different individuals across the regional directors communicate out what's happening, what they're doing. So literally just creating quick little bite-sized videos.
Hello Region 11, welcome to the weekend. Today, I'd like to take...
I won't go through the whole thing, but then you can see dialogues and social dialogue happening under each piece of communication. So apologies for the little mic thing down here. But you get the concept of this. So individuals every day are engaging their workforce, sharing best practice, sharing best ideas. One particular example, which is one of my personal favorites, is a guy Dineen, and Dineen wasn't famous until he made his little video. He worked out, and literally took him once he worked out an idea, which was it takes 3 minutes.
Hi guys, I'm Nitin from Reading 315, and today I'm
going to go through the details, but in essence, Dineen worked out, instead of using a phone to phone O2 or Vodafone, in terms of going through the customer services part to with a client, that actually if he uses live chat, it takes 3 minutes versus 30 minutes. That piece of knowledge shared out and viewed by 1,200 odd people across Phones for You ends up saying Phones for You 18,000 hours a year just in times and not on the phones. Also 18,000 hours of customer time. The total video length on that is 58 seconds. And that piece of knowledge was literally shared and distributed in the same day. And you can see here the comments underneath, such as this guy, after 35 minutes of O2's music, finally got through to someone the classic O2 line, I'll ring you back. So I tried this tip and 3.5 minutes later, it all works. So that propagated out amongst their whole workforce in days, obviously has a massive impact to that. In terms of sales best practice, the guy with doing the best product demo, I mean, what they see is inside what they know and what every retailer knows is the best knowledge of how to sell their products exists with their salespeople. Just as the best knowledge of an engineers, it sits with the engineers. So whether it's us working with Samsung, with those guys, it's a customer services approach of there's your official process and procedure, but actually there's a lot of tips and tricks that in the field, like Nitin's example, that radically make a big difference to performance improvement, operational excellence. So how do you feed that information in from the field, work out what's good and what's bad, and then push that back out the other way again? So a couple of different examples gone through to get the basic concepts in place around what we mean by social. So social, I guess in the world that we see it, social learning is not trying to take Twitter or LinkedIn as news feeds and people do status updates. Which I think if you talk about the rest of the learning world, they think adding that status update approach of, I'm not in the office today or I'm working on a project, that has some value, but that's not social learning, that's social networking. It's a radical difference to what you've seen going on there, which is actually social learning. That says we're learning from each other. We're learning from top down, learning from ground up, and we're learning peer to peer. We're learning from each other. We're not just giving information about actually what's happening in our day in a stream of consciousness, which every now and then a good thing happens, but actually overall, there's probably loads of stuff that's irrelevant for us. This is a filtered world where every piece of content that's created by the community is uploaded to the community. So when the director of Region 11 does their daily or weekly update, only people in Region 11 get that in the notification. Not the whole of the world of Phones for You, which if they did, would just become exactly what a newsfeed approach to social learning is, which is a stream of consciousness, which most of it is irrelevant. So the filtering and the relevance of content is a core concept here. As well as I think the other thing we've hopefully learned from that is it's very important to go to Jamaica to create these videos. It's key. I think I can back that up, and we've got proof of the most watched videos is when you're in Jamaica. So I think it's absolutely critical we can make that part of the whole ROI. The second aspect here is what happens to an organization once social learning is adopted. And actually what's been interesting for Phones for You, as it is for our own organization, which we use the technology every day, is we have a concept of what we call social capital. So social capital, is that better? Okay, people don't, worse, better, you don't care? Tell me you care. Okay, a little bit. So the concept of social capital is we measure every day in individuals how much their knowledge is shared, how much is created, how much you collaborate. And if you see at the top here, you've got 3 filters of as a learner, I can filter as a collaboration demigod. You don't have to call it that, that's just our language internally. That's how much you're sharing, collaborating, being involved, and your knowledge hero, how much your knowledge is being consumed by the organization. Now, I can pretty much, exactly the same as Phones for You, look at my leaderboard and actually know who is engaged in my organization. Okay, it's a bit worrying I'm number 2, not number 1. That's a little bit concerning, the fact that I should be the most engaged in the company. But Jonathan, my COO, it's pretty good. Tony wasn't doing too good a couple of weeks ago. But we gave Tony a big pep talk, and he's massively, and we can see the change inside it. Funny enough, actually, I also gave Jafar and Ryan a pay increase about 3 weeks ago. And they've gone from number 20 on the leaderboard to number 4 and 5 on the leaderboard. So I've got a direct barometer of people engagement on a living basis. So Phones for You actually took the data, their customer care survey results, and actually applied it to Fuse. And what they saw was a dynamic living barometer of the people engaged actually in collaborating and knowledge sharing were exactly the people that were saying, I'm engaged inside the business. I also know that actually, sadly enough, I actually had dinner last night with someone, with the sales director at LinkedIn, and their head of customer services had taken the same role that my head of customer services is. They said, we're not going to work in customer service anymore where we work twice as hard, we're going to go be salespeople. So my head of customer service actually left to be a salesperson, the same as LinkedIn's, funny enough. The funny thing though, so my head of customer services over the last 4 weeks has now gone from top 5 to now bottom 5, or at least in this type of thing here. So again, it shows me that I've actually got a living barometer to work out who do I need to have an intervention with, because I can see actually are they disengaging with the business. And even that, and this is important data for us, especially when we're trying to create a culture of collaboration, a culture of engagement, as I know that if I get the right managers engaged, their teams engaged as well. So I want to go away from, let's say, a tech-savvy audience and actually go the other side. So the post office is a relatively new client of ours, but one that's a really exciting client of ours. And I guess if you think of the post office, what's probably the imagery that comes to your head? Okay, so as Gabriella from the post office said, before she joined, her concept was actually probably really old school. So on one side you see a Phones for You, you say, yeah, kind of, they're going to get this, right? They're young, techie type individuals. But on the same thing here, we just launched Fuse out to the senior leadership team of the whole of post office. So the most senior people in what we probably think upon as being the most traditional of organizations. So what they wanted to try and do was, in the first program, the senior leadership training program, was try to bridge a gap. And what that gap was of 73 of their 75 top leaders said, we don't feel a sense of community amongst our leadership team. So they've used our technology to actually try to create that increased sense of collaboration. Actually, when the senior leadership team event was launched, actually let's actually listen to Gabriella. She's far more eloquent than I am. Let me actually get one with Gabriella talking. So let's hear their learning vision.
All the new thinking around learning is focused on the 70-20-10 model, meaning that only 10% of what we learn comes from formal learning. 70% comes from putting it into practice, making mistakes and then having another go. And 20% comes from the feedback and knowledge that we get from others. If we take learning to drive a car, we gain 10% of the skill from the theory books, 20% from what the driving instructor tells us, and then 70% of the skill comes from driving the car itself. Here at Post Office, we focus very much on the formal part of learning, and we don't really utilise the benefits of social learning as much as we can. We often look at building capability as something that happens in a classroom, yet we know that an hour after we've attended a training course, we've already forgotten 50% of what we just learned. We have great people, great leaders and great knowledge, but we're not really allowing everyone to get access to it. We want to design learning programmes that focus not only on the formal part, but also the social element. To bring this to life as part of the development of our senior leadership team, we are using Fuse, a community-based social learning platform which allows people to collaborate, share best practice and learn from each other in small, bite-sized chunks. The trainers at each stage of the programme will be able to add relevant content which they've created, as well as content they've taken from elsewhere. Anyone in that community will be able to access the content before they go on a course, immediately afterwards, but also further down the line at a point where they may have forgotten some of what they originally learnt. Members of the community will also be able to share what they've learnt from formal training, job-based experience, or even content they found online. As the platform is available on the web, but also via app, it means that the learning can be accessed whenever you need it, everywhere you go. It is also a great way of keeping people engaged in learning. The digital evolution is helping us to think differently about the way we engage with our customers and colleagues, but also about the way we learn. The future of learning and development is no longer about putting people into classrooms, but is about helping each other to extract and share relevant knowledge, putting it into practice and then learning from it. Our learning programmes are moving from being classroom focused to taking a much more holistic approach, making better use of the technology that can support them. We will spend less time in the classroom, but the time we do spend will be of more value, as we will be able to focus more on facilitated learning rather than the pure delivery of knowledge that can so easily be shared via a digital platform like Fuse. The Senior Leadership Team Development Programme will offer a blend of the best of the two worlds, and by encouraging our leaders to share, it means we'll all be learning from the very best people and capturing the best knowledge. Information will always be relevant, accurate and available in a single place. Imagine the impact of the best trainers in the organisation being the very people we all work alongside. Ultimately, these are the people we all want to learn from. The future is that the organisation learns from itself, allowing our own people's brilliance to be amplified and then celebrated over time. The dream is to create a culture where people want to learn, want to share, and they do this every day without even realising it.
So if we look at the practical side of it, that's actually happening every day now amongst the most traditional organisations. So obviously a lot of the time, previously I used to get people, yeah, but it won't work for our culture. I think if it works for the most traditional of organisations and the most senior people inside that organisation. And here you can see the senior leadership team creating videos of themselves, video selfies by the senior leadership team of the post office. When they did their senior leadership event and the one-day event that they did, at the end of every event, they actually made a little video consolidating the learning they've made, which is then shared to the people that didn't come to the event, as well as people inside the event. So here you can see a whole range of content that was created on the senior leadership training days. And inside here, you can also see on a day-to-day basis, when Gabriella, who you heard talk, the head of learning, she's something really good from a TED video or something else you think that's really good, she'll upload it, she'll make the little link and share it out to that team, and there'll be a conversation and dialogue around that. So, helping to keep the momentum going. So that's one perspective of how it's changing their culture. If I look at, say, the next evolution, because we're looking at the post office amongst not just the senior leadership training side, but actually the whole network of 11,000 post offices and 50,000 staff. So I think the next important part, and if we look at that first part, which is starting to go from pure social learning to social learning integrated into the design of formal learning, if we take the next step forward and say, actually, how do we completely reinvent the classroom? Every classroom, whether that's a classroom in a school, university, and every type of corporate training event. And that's what I think the interesting journey the post office and the rest of our clients are going to. So we see this probably in 4 parts, a whole different way how we think upon structuring our content, structuring our learning plans, how we create content, how we move content around, how do we not end up with 84 versions of the same course, but actually end up with a version of a learning program that's built up of bite-sized chunks that when you change one chunk, it changes everyone's learning plan who that relates to. And how do you integrate social learning into that whole place for the maximum capability? So the true 70-20, I always say 7-20-10, I was speaking too fast. Good thing is I've got videos, you can hear me afterwards, you can go back and slow pace and stuff afterwards, so that may work out better. So let's take the first step of a new learning design. First step is let's take their approach to retail training. So the retail training, they teach 500 people a year in a face-to-face environment. It's an absolute brilliant course. Paul and the mystery man Colin are really, really good expert trainers in their field around retail, visual merchandising, how you set your store up. But obviously they recognize there's 50,000 potential people who would like access to their knowledge rather than the 500 people come to their program. So the first thing we do, exactly we did with Gabriella on her video, is we work out what's all the core knowledge that needs to be delivered before the course. So first of all, we changed the course completely. So the face-to-face course now is purely about the actual action-orientated learning. How do I apply the knowledge in a safe environment? The activities before the course is let's digitize the core knowledge into these bite-sized videos, animate them as we did, turn the whole thing around within a week or two, because now if we're capturing the audio of the expert, as we do in this new methodology, it takes 10 minutes to capture the expert and 2 days to make the video. Not this months and months and months of creating this other style of content we've been doing for the last 10 years. We then take that content, and actually as an example of, I'm not going to show this one, but an example of a piece of content we created 2 years ago, and some of you, actually who's seen this video, the 70-20-10 video by Charles Jennings? Anyone seen that video? Hands up. That's not bad. It's, complete strangers, 6 or 7 hands up inside there. We created that video. It took 5 minutes of Charles's time. It's got 100,000 plus views on YouTube for it. Exactly the same concept as, so we've taken these guys' core knowledge on visual merchandising and taken bite-sized videos and then put those into pre-learning plans. So those pre-learning plans are basically exactly the same concept as a structured course, but they're built up of bite-sized elements. So if you find a better explanation or you want to add something to it, you just upload and edit to it and change the course dynamically. And because it's on the cloud, it's instantaneous towards any change. We can measure that change and measure the learning plans and measure the activity. And for some of our clients like Panasonic basically say unless you complete your learning plan, you're not allowed on a face-to-face event. Then on a face-to-face event, there's no sage on the stage. It's purely action-orientated learning. So now you've got to take the knowledge applied on visual merchandising and actually create a plan with activities that says, how do I apply that to my post office? So everyone inside there is walking away with a plan saying, I know what I'm going to go do, how I've actually internalized the conceptual knowledge, and what I'm actually going to do is a plan to actually apply that in a practical scenario. Exactly the same whether that's sales training or management training or any other type of intervention outside that. Once they go back to that, then actually inside the learning plan, there's a question we call a comprehension question or a behavioral question. So multiple choice questions are great for, let's say, the pre-knowledge to make, to test your understanding of it. But obviously they're not great multiple choice questions in terms of behavioral change. Behavioral change question or comprehension question then says, in order to show you've actually internalized it, and for me, the tutor, to give you feedback on it, make a video showing, via the Fuse app, how you've actually applied that knowledge and you've changed your post office. So a pre and a post, shot of your post office showing how you've actually taken on board that. If that was sales training for LinkedIn, for example, that would say, now you've got the core knowledge around each of our products, show to me you can actually do an elevator pitch on that core product. If that was management training, it would say, actually, now you've been on the 2-day management training course, show to me afterwards in a 3-minute video how you applied that knowledge, or actually how you've internalized it and how you've understood that. Not recognizing the answer in a multiple choice question, but actually showing you can recall it and actually apply it. So inside the post office, that then is sent back automatically into the Fuse platform, and then there's a social dialogue between the trainer and the actual individual that's uploaded it. If that's a good piece of content and a good example of best practice, that can be added to the community, so the whole community is now looking at best practice amongst each other. So everyone's learning from the best and getting better every single day over the duration of that program. But then because all the content sits in a cloud-based platform built of bite-sized content and social interactions, that's just the beginning of the journey. So a journey of learning should be a journey, which means there's never an end. So it's exactly the same in that TED, in the post office instance, where she's sharing little TED videos. The same type of thing here. The post office trainer might have a better explanation, or there's a really good example. There's a new way of thinking. So those can be either recorded or shared and pushed out to that community. At the same time, that community can go back to any of those great explanations. Think about the best training you've ever had. Whenever you go back and you always think, I did on listening to training, thought, I've got the workbook, but I had the trainer that delivered the workbook. Now, actually, what I want to go back to is not my notes, and it's not actually the workbook, it's the interpretation of how the trainer delivered it. How do I get back to that? So that's the concept here, is that at any time forever, the person no longer prints out manuals which get thrown away. It's now cheaper to build bite-sized video content, which is forever accessible wherever they are in the world, in their pocket, on their phone. To be specific, it's not books in their pocket, that would be a bit weird. So I guess inside here, what we're now showing is a joint up approach towards how we think upon designing the 2010. Was that a yawn, Michelle? That it was. I know you've heard it before a couple of times. Michelle was actually here at Learning Technologies 18 months ago. And actually from that, we now have a beautiful relationship with each other. So I'm embarrassed you for doing it now. Michelle is a magnificent client for us. Actually on the back of coming to Learning Technologies, and actually she's obviously now, can I say? And now she's obviously resigning, working with us as of next week. I'm not suggesting that's a path always that everyone should take, but that's a level of a partnership relationship that we have. Isn't that beautiful? That's what you should have in a relationship here. You're so committed to each other, you want to work with each other forever. Not red at all there, are you? So, I guess you never yawn again, will you? So joining all these things up together, this is, we hear about 2010, and we hear about the concepts and the architecture to it. So this is our vision of a practical implementation of how the technology supports that, but also how thinking can be adopted to go through that part. I could talk for a long time, as you could probably imagine. So maybe just allow some questions from you guys to challenge me or to ask questions or to gain more understanding. Hands up. One at a time. Okay, who's embarrassed? So guys, quick hands up. As a concept, yeah, go for it. Well, I think, so the question was, for those who couldn't hear, obviously the post office senior leadership team demographic is not your phones for you demographic. So it's a more traditional demographic. So how do you get them to engage and actually buy into the concept and run with it? So I think one of the really good things that Gabriella did, she launched it physically at an event. So, and actually at their senior leadership training event, I actually did a half-hour presentation to get across the concept of social learning. But then actually what they did, at the end of each breakout session, they actually made a little video and created in a participatory, tricky word for me, participatory video. So little teams, they consolidated what they've learned in that place and they made a video. So actually forcing it inside that environment. And to be fair, they were like Scorsese, you know, they really had fun with it. They were making little videos and turning around and little action movies, but they really had fun with it. So that was a good first step to introduce the concept that this is not hard, and actually it's quite fun and it's quite engaging. Gabriella herself, as the head of learning, did obviously a talk on social networking, and actually in the recognition that you want to network with each other, and she proved obviously at the same time there's knowledge in the room that people want from each other. So, you know, that was a good starting place. You wouldn't say it was overnight, right? So, you know, there was as Gabriella presented a couple of weeks ago, and she said there was a couple of weeks when the activity wasn't happening. And she was like, oh my God, you know, is it not going to work? Is it all going to fall over? Am I a complete idiot? And then actually she started seeing actually more and more now, people, I think conceptually everyone bought into it, but a little bit of hold handing and consistent encouragement, sharing things out from the center, you know, from Gabriella pushing stuff. Because there's journeys here, right? There's a journey you start off with by viewing stuff. And there is another 70-20-10, which says in the world of social learning, you want 10% of people to contribute, 20% to collaborate, to push and share, and 70% are just lurkers or consuming. So that's okay. You're not expecting everyone to create. You know, what you want is people understanding from each other and the experts creating. So getting the first followers and the first people, and to be fair, the funny thing about it was the first people creating their own content and sharing their own content wasn't the people you expect. It was the head of internal audit. And you saw the Phones for You guy, right? That's their security investigations guy, who's a pretty serious guy on the beach in Jamaica. Maybe, you know, he's a bit more relaxed that week. So I think the first follower concept is in how do you start a movement is very, very key aspect to it. Holding the hands as individuals, someone responsible for continuing to push things out, but also not, you know, accepting the fact that this isn't an overnight thing that's going to happen. Conceptually, those leaders, they all recognize though that this concept also, it becomes much easier overall for post office to adopt this new technology, because the senior leadership team are all going, well, this is brilliant. We should use this in this area, in this area, in this area. So at the moment, we're digitizing the HR information around recruitment. So obviously they have all the recruitment policies, but obviously no one's going to read through a 50-page document on their how to create a job description. So we're creating 10 2-3-minute videos on this is how you create a job description. This little refresher on a good interview. So that, you know, on the HR parts, in terms of, you know, dangerous goods and compliance type stuff, the same thing, bite-sized videos. In the aspects of workshops around retail, you know, the whole redesign of how you think about learning. But because they know all the senior leadership team has bought into it, it makes it much easier for the rest of the organization to go with it as well. So starting in that way kind of was a helping part too. And having someone that's, you know, Gabriella, who's the head of learning, she's very savvy herself with social media. So that makes it easier for her to actually drive that journey. Other questions? You're a bit shy, huh? Final chance? Go, Michelle, ask a question. Make them feel warmed up. Oh, okay, next big thing for you. That's a good question. I should have planted that one. I didn't, but I should have. So actually, there's a whole range of technologies coming out in the next release. But actually, I think one of the most important things around performance is what we're doing actually with another technology company. And it's integrating observational software into Fuse. So what I mean by that, so observational software is where, so via an app, what would happen is, first of all, you would look at what good looks like in a role. So in a major telecommunication brand that's not Phones for You, where we're designing the program, is first of all we benchmark what good looks like in a sales role. So rather than 360s, which is very objective, we're taking something that's benchmark based. Once you work out with that benchmark, you then create a scorecard of what's all the activities a person needs to do to be defined as good or excellent inside that role. Once that's done inside it, so inside the Fuse app, you'll then have a store manager or a coach is able to observe behavior and say whether the yes, no, that person's doing that behavior. And because the architecture of Fuse is all bite-sized based with learning plans, there's an automatic correlation then between what the output of that observation looks like and a completely personalized learning plan looks like to refresh that person to go through. So we know that actually from the pilots we've done already, that actually we're probably going to see a 20-30% increase in performance around that role by integrating those two aspects to each other. At the same time, even a pure social learning part would also increase that part too. So in the pure social learning part, let's take a typical product they take like insurance. So what we do in the insurance product is, first of all, you create a little video for the audience. Says, why do you want to sell, as a salesperson? Why sell this product? What's in it for me? What's in it for the customer? Legally, actually, you have to. The second thing is then a couple of bite-sized videos from the best pitches from the best people who are selling the most about it. So really, really quick and fast. This is the best person in Phones for You. Sorry, not Phones for You, the telco that's doing it. So the best person pitching it and the second best person. So you're now able to role model best practice. And then every store is then that she does her own little video that says whoever creates a competition, is creating a competition. Whoever creates the best video, then they get a prize. So everyone again is internalizing it. So we know that the combination, therefore, of observational software and formalized, personalized learning plans around their sales skills is great. Integrate that with a social part to it. We're pretty sure that in January time when that telco produces the results, that are going to be really exciting. That was a quick answer to a long answer, quick question. Okay, last chance for a question. Okay, well, thanks for listening, guys. Thank you very much. If you want more information, talk to Tony and myself, or go to the Fuse stand.